first saw this Amazon, homepage back in the 90s, even they could not describe exactly what that would mean. When you add up all these things that we just talked about, the math, the cryptography, the decentralization, the open, transparent nature of it, all the cryptocurrencies that one might buy and use, all the use cases that could be built on top of a global computer like Ethereum, we can hardly conceive.
This is part 2 with Brooks Jordan. Leave us a review on iTunes. That would be awesome. Send me feedback at Coloring Crypto on Twitter. And visit our sponsor, tinycables.com/color. Brooks had just explained how even though Bitcoin is not the most optimized, efficient, fastest algorithm out there, how it may be held on to like gold. Brooks, can you explain more about that?
There's just really this sense that you buy it, you keep it, and it just represents something that's so foundational to all of the other coins or cryptocurrencies that are available that it just maintains its value in this almost a different way. Now another coin could come into the picture and provide that kind of store value capability, or Bitcoin could be hacked or taken over or harmed by say governments who feel threatened by it and that kind of thing. So that kind of thing could happen, but at the moment it's just really very, very strong, and more people are realizing that it's something they want to have.
Did you hear about Ethereum or buy any Ethereum like 6-9 months ago before it just skyrocketed?
Nope, I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't. There's all kinds of FOMO in cryptocurrency because you just can't believe you miss certain horses.
And clearly, we don't know the potential. We just feel that there's a massive potential. But I'm curious if you have any sort of like applications of what a smart contract and the blockchain things could. What could they do that would transform things, disrupt things? Where does the imagination in the future go with this?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, that's why, that is the vision for Ethereum, that it's called, the global computer often, because it's really envisioned and being built as this virtual computer. And that's a pretty straightforward concept, right? We all use computers, obviously. We all use, we're familiar with this idea of the cloud, and that things are running not locally on our desktop anymore. It's much of it is on servers, and Ethereum is really that same idea. But what makes it unique is that nobody owns it. So the basic principles of the blockchain, that it's decentralized, that nobody can hack or say that a certain transaction didn't happen because it's recorded on the blockchain and everybody owns it, and then you code up the platform on top of that blockchain in a way that allows anything to be written on top of it. So that's what the founders of Ethereum have done. What are your
favorite kind of examples of people that can get this is what it could do, this is in my life how it would affect it?
Very quickly, first let me say that I was just at a talk recently with Joe Lubin, who's a co-founder of Ethereum, and helps run this company called Consensus, where they mostly use Ethereum to build on top of and help other organizations create the apps that can support their use cases. And I just bring that up to say that he was very, very convincing in this talk I went to about all the ways that they're speeding up and making Ethereum as a platform work even better to be this world virtual computer that everybody can use. So I think there's very important things happening with Ethereum in just the next several months, and they have a major update coming on October 19th now. And so I think it's strengthening and positioning itself to do what it's been envisioned to do. Now, so what are specific examples? So one I was reading about just the other day, which is not something you can just download now and start using, because I think, although there are some things like that, and I'm trying to find as many as possible and play with them, but I think what's happening now is people are envisioning, what they can do with it, and they're doing the ICOs, or they're creating the organizations to be able to actualize it, right? So one of them is called Carbon X. And CarbonX, for those particularly who care about, global warming or sort of the social aspects of the blockchain, is really interesting. So what they're going to do is they're going to invest in programs that can create carbon offsets, right? So there are these things that you can do that you are basically paying for the carbon you're using by doing something else, or paying an actual fee to offset the carbon that you're using. And that's been around for quite a while, and it's been one sort of major way that we're trying to mitigate around the world our use of carbon.
Is CarbonX an actual coin or token?
In their white paper, or in all their descriptions of what they're doing, they have called out this coin. I can't remember the acronym for it that they have, but yes, there's an actual coin associated with it, which is very key to how they're going to do it. So what they're going to do is they're going to incentivize individuals to participate in these carbon offsets that they're going to invest in initially by exchanging value through these coins. Right. So I think for me, it's a really good example of just the basic idea of how you use this. So there's somebody who can do something maybe only that a small group could do, or that can make an initial investment, but you can get say thousands or millions even of people involved by using tokens on the blockchain in a particular way.
So just let's dig into this example just to see if we can flesh it out. So,
yeah.
For example, I flew from Los Angeles to Oakland today, and so I just made a huge carbon imprint because I flew.
Yeah.
And so is this concept altruistically driven, where I'd say, hey, I just flew, whatever it was miles. Here's what my dent was. Now I'm going to be I'm going to offer to pay some tokens.
I love your question, because the answer is no. And the reason I'm so happy the answer is no is because built into sort of the whole notion of tokens and cryptocurrencies and the blockchain is that we don't just have to chalk it up to these altruistic motivations, because people can be it's the incentives through these coins, meaning these tokens that people can initially buy because they think, just like all these other coins, that they're going to rise in value. Right, they can invest in it just for that reason. So they may spend $1 a coin initially, but just because of the way the whole network is starting to work around these coins, maybe then it's worth $5 or maybe 10 or maybe 1,000 eventually. So people can invest just for that reason alone.
I actually have not heard of CarbonX. There's thousands of these ICOs.
Importantly, what Ethereum's doing is they're creating in the technology itself the ability to create coins on top of Ethereum. So there's a real development piece to using a coin. So Ethereum's enabling people who may not have the ability or the funding to create coins for whatever purpose they want. So I just wanted to mention that. But so this is one that I learned about that actually IBM is doing, and they're basically helping other companies with their supply chains. And people that may listen to this would be interested in sort of what the example that I heard, which was about organic produce, right? So a lot of us want organic produce, and we want to make sure that what's being represented as organic, and I think there's different definitions of what organic means. There's sort of gray areas or whatever. So we want to be able to ID essentially and trust that something that we're being told is organic is, and that it's the right price and so forth. So what the blockchain allows you to do is to track, and there are say consulting organizations helping larger companies do this. They want to help them track, like say one apple that's grown organically all the way through a pretty sophisticated supply chain, at least for some stores, say a Whole Foods or a Walmart or what have you. You can, at each touch point and at every stop along the way for that one apple, you can verify on the blockchain that it came in a particular way, that it weighs a certain amount, that it was, pesticides weren't used, and that can be tracked all along the way in a way that we can verify as an individual, as a consumer.
So what's different? Why wouldn't IBM just use a database? What's the advantage of the blockchain when they could just track all these things with a simple database?
Well, a database is closed. A database can't be verified. A database isn't transparent. It's not something that everyone can trust. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The fact that not everybody can use it, so it's not decentralized, so not everyone can take advantage of that network and all the network effects you'll get from something being decentralized. and people can't trust it. But with the blockchain, you can really now. Of course, there's going to have to be make business sense for a company like Whole Foods or whatever to use that. Why would they want to use it? They would want to use it because they get more customers. I mean, think about the sort of the marketing potential of having that piece of produce be verified in a way that there's just no question for a consumer, especially over time, that it is what they say it is. It's the price that they say it is. There's real advantages to creating that kind of connection with the consumer.
Okay, now let me almost sort of back out of that a little bit and get into this idea of the impacts of cryptocurrency and the blockchain. People are just so, enchanted and tantalized by money, but also it's
Yes.
our startup, 2 years ago, we got $20,000 from our incubator, and I couldn't believe the challenges in giving them money and the bureaucracy involved and the large, overexpensive offices they had. And I was like, the banks need to get disrupted. And here cryptocurrency is offering that opportunity. What does that look like, man? What's your own take on what's going to happen with the banks? What will be their backlash? What's the government's response going to be? Because these are very, very big institutions, and the promise of cryptocurrency is that we don't need banks. We have digital currency now.
In a perfect world, we would not need any of those banks or any of those intermediaries or sort of investment guidance, certainly not in the way that we do now, because there could be a distributed, open way of exchanging money, exchanging value through these currencies, and a lot of education through in a peer-to-peer way, through this whole process, that their role that they've held for so long would become a lot less necessary, maybe not necessary at all. Now, the reality, I think, of how that's going to play out, I don't believe for a second that they're going to let that happen, just simply because they're going to be looking for their sort of next business opportunity, just in a very basic way, and they have a lot of money to put behind that, getting to that next stage. But I think there's deeper levels of that, which involve governments, and politics, and sort of the boundaries of nation states, where all of that is going to come into the mix in some way. And it is something I think that for those who are very interested in this and see that this could really benefit, people and society in a certain way, if we don't also address the sort of the takeover possibility, or the attempt to take over or hack or shut down some of these systems, blockchain in general, or certain currencies, or to regulate them in a certain way. It doesn't mean that no regulation should happen, because I think people need to be protected too in positive ways. But it's not just that everyone's just going to step back and allow this to happen in a way that truly could benefit the most people in the least amount of time. I don't think that's going to happen in quite the clean way that some think.
How many people out there in the world understand the cryptocurrency algorithm technology, the protocols? Could governments shut it down? They shut down Napster. Like, who do you kind of keep track of? Or do you think this are the smart minds, or who are the cutting edge kind of people that are that have the understanding of what these things could be?
Yeah, I mean, it's people like Naval Ravikant, here in SF, who started AngelList and is now doing something called CoinList. He's really involved and started an investment firm just for cryptocurrencies. So there are people like that I think are just so convincing and thinking at a very deep level and sharing that with everyone else through Twitter and through blog posts and whatnot, that when you really understand the potential here and why it's going to be very difficult for governments to shut this down, part of it has to do with the way, something we haven't talked a lot about, but what are the elements that make this all work? There's a whole mining component and a sort of the inability for any one entity to own more than 51%, to own 51% of a blockchain because of the way that it's set up. And so it creates a kind of built-in sort of equality so that it can't be taken over. Now, people are challenging that, and people have all kinds of ideas about how that can be disrupted, but that's the way that it was built.
What is the next big step of evolution in software that would cause as much of a step up as Ethereum did because of smart contracts?
Right. Well, it's not necessarily just about smart contracts. It could be like anonymity. Like there's a big sort of desire to have right now, if you send Bitcoin based on these, cryptographic addresses that you have, you can basically see who sent what to who. But there are coins that are being developed like Monero that is, which is I think is a very hot coin. So it's increased in value, quite a bit. I believe it's up around, $80 a coin, something like that. It's increased in value quite quickly, and absolutely for sure, some of the very smart investors, some people who are investing quite a bit of money in this, are buying up that coin. Now, why are they buying it up? Because there's certain ways that they're evaluating if that coin both has sort of inherent value, but also how it will scale over time. And part of that is there a big developer community around it, right? So are there enough developers who are interested in sort of the underlying use case and technology of it that they're putting in all of their efforts? So that's one really big reason that these coins succeed. There's another one called Decred, Decred, that I think is right now around $30 a coin that people are very excited about. And that coin is all about governance, right? Like how to create a certain kind of governance model in these decentralized networks. And that is a very deep conversation about how that's done in a cryptographic way, in a secure way, in a way that you can use smart contracts to facilitate that. So, we could talk for an hour each on each of these coins, and people are, because the possibilities are just really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard that was really cool, I thought was basically taking land rights into the blockchain, where all the property people owned was based on, it was just all established in the blockchain. But it's funny, but each metaphor or each idea, the funny thing is, like, nothing's actually happened yet. It's like a lot of promises.
It's true. But there's a company called Polychain Capital, and the person who founded that, he worked originally at Coinbase, and then pretty early on decided he wanted to do this other just pure investment company. And so I was watching a podcast that he was doing with Y Combinator, and his point about it I thought was very good. So they were asking him some of the things that we're talking about, like, how can you actually use it? Can I get my hands on it, right? Can I actually download something, create an account, and start using it? And it's not quite there yet. You can certainly find those things. Yeah. And I think every day, they're either coming online or they're getting closer and closer. But his point was really good, which was that, remember back, for some of us at least, back in the 90s and in the 2000s when the internet first came online.
Dude, I was just going to say this. Yes.
We first saw this Amazon, homepage, selling books, this very rudimentary thing. And a lot of people were like, this will never last. There's no way people are going to buy, anything over the internet. You're never going to be able to do e-commerce. This is just, not going to happen. Maybe use in a very limited way or not at all. And then a small group of people were like, I think there's really something very interesting and powerful here. But they could not describe exactly what that would mean, the things that you would be able to do with this. And that's definitely my feeling about it. Like when you add up all these things that we just talked about, the math, the cryptography, the decentralization, the open, transparent nature of it, all the cryptocurrencies that one might buy and use, all the use cases that could be built on top of a global computer like Ethereum, we can hardly conceive of all the different combinations of putting that together to create something that would work better for us, whatever that would mean.
Dude, I love that you, as you were bringing that up, I immediately flashed but the question, is this April 2001 when I was working for .com, a third of our clients went out of business in a matter of 3 to 6 months. it was our stock prices were at an insane level, and so I think people are looking at like Bitcoin and they're like, oh, I got in too late, or Ethereum, I got in too late. It's already happened. And how do you gauge the value? How do we know it's not April 2001, right before this massive crash? Or how do we know it's like, not, if you had Amazon the whole time, how do we know where the Amazons are and the Apples are and the Facebooks are in this crypto world?
I totally agree. I absolutely agree. And I think hopefully we're all a little bit more wise just for these different, waves we've been through with the internet, that there probably will be some kind of crash. So we want to protect ourselves against that. We don't want to be overinvested. We want to be diversified. We only want to put the money in that we can actually afford, right, to lose, essentially. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we have to not recognize what this actually is and where it could go. Because even when the crash happens, it's just going to clear out a lot of the pets.com or whatever that just couldn't exist, and it's going to go on, and surge in an even stronger way, that then we can really start to create the things that are possible. So I think for me, it's like holding both of those possibilities and just being kind of more mature about that happening, rather than saying, oh yeah, this is going to happen in this particular way. It's just going to be up and to the right, and I'm going to make a lot of money, and it's always going to be that way. That's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that this is not an actually very revolutionary thing that is actually happening right now as we speak. The third level of the internet that's how I think of it, is being built, and the global monetary system is being rewritten as we speak. And all of the use cases that can be built on top of that involve land and real estate, that involve carbon, like we talked about, that involve supply chains, and really anything that you could think about could be adapted for and be used in this new internet.
So what's next for you with your interest in cryptocurrency and the blockchain?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely, looking at that major upgrade for Ethereum on October 19th that I mentioned, because just for the value of the coin itself, that should have some pretty, serious implications. But even if it weren't to surge in value, it's just going to make the platform itself that much stronger, and that will allow people to be building things on it and really going live with some of these uses of it that we were talking about. So that's super exciting. But yeah, I mean, I'm involved in several online communities, global ones, where people are gathering around different aspects of this, like what's the long-term picture, what can you invest in, just personally to be involved at that level, and then the financial services, the fintech that we were talking about, I have my foot in that piece as well, because I think that's a place that I maybe could really help, like bring those two communities together, and make them create sort of connections and technology with those two groups of people that could really make this thing even that that much more powerful and stable. So I'm potentially looking to involve myself in that way. But then what I'm really interested in, and we can just I guess end on this note, for me, the only way that this really works, particularly if you're talking about all of the other technologies that are emerging at the same time as this, drones and gene editing and AI. So all that stuff is coming online at the same time as the blockchain. The only way I think to really work with all of that and use it in a positive way ultimately is through community, right? And I know you and I, in different ways, have had a lot of experience with the power and sort of when you're in a really great community and people are working with one another and helping each other and providing their little piece of what they know, what they see, what they can contribute in those communities, there's really nothing better in my mind, in my experience. And I think we have to think about that in a digital way as well. And the blockchain is just perfect. It's just the perfect platform. It's absolutely peer-to-peer, and it just incentivizes people and it creates more and more trust if we're to build it out in the right way. And I think only by setting it up in the right way and engaging individual people to be in community, both on the blockchain and then in the physical world, can we even have any kind of hope of sort of managing and working through and ultimately leveraging all of these technologies that are going to come together in the next 25 to 50 years? So that's really my sort of core interest.
Brooks, happy birthday. Thank you so much for spending part of your birthday with us with the Coloring Crypto podcast.
Yeah, thanks. It was super fun. Thanks for having me on.
Subscribe now.